everyone, and welcome to this webinar sponsored by Savvly, your personal pension designed to provide lifelong financial security and peace of mind. I'm here with Bruno Caron, a financial industry consultant and author of the book Lifetime Income to Retire with Strength. Welcome, Bruno.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Awesome, awesome. So before we dive into some of the retirement stuff, I'd like to first ask about your journey. What brought you to this point? What got you into the financial industry? What got your interest in lifetime income and retirement in this whole field?
I'd say as a young child, it was mathematics. That was probably my strength. A lot of kids, students around me were really good at everything. I was fortunate enough to only be good in mathematics, so that was definitely my lead into the finance world, actuarial world, and I went into to actuarial sciences. And I've always loved the fact that the investment world, the finance world, the actuarial world, the insurance world are very well connected, very well intertwined in this academic space and the in the student phase of your world, and that led me to uh, basically blend in all of those concepts academically to a more practical way later on.
Yep, yep. So obviously mathematics, very useful skill. Engineer by training, former financial quant. I totally relate with you. A lot of people hate mathematics, but I love it personally. But it sounds like you didn't want to be, just academic. You wanted to say, hey, listen, how can I use this on the ground? How can I see where this really works and makes a difference? And I mean, finance is definitely a place where that happens.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I was always I got into my professional career with maybe a naive thought that that reasoning through things is always the way to go, and that allows you to jump from one sector to the other. But I vividly understood that this was not the case, and that there's a lot of barriers between those worlds. But once you crack them, or at least crack them partially, it allows you to kind of broaden your horizons and really hope for bigger things.
Cool, man. Cool. So, what inspired you to write your book?
Well, when I started my career at an actuarial pension benefit consulting firm,
Mhm.
but I was part of the life insurance consulting. So the firm was called Towers Parent, which is now Willis. And at the very beginning, I was part of this small branch called Tillinghast that was doing the life insurance consulting for the life insurance industry. And but I followed the shift of defined benefit pensions to defined contribution pensions from a very close eye. And as a matter of fact, the firm we were actually working in did not have a defined benefit pension plan anymore. It had a defined contribution pension plan. So at the time, it was fairly clear where that shift was going. And again, very naively, uh, I didn't see this as a major deal because when the solution, when the employers stop offering something, I always thought that natural market forces would lead to good slash pension solutions to individuals, and that the private markets would take over. And of course, it was a big thing for the firm I was working for at the time because that was the business model. But in the grand scheme of things, I never thought that this would be a big thing because the private market would easily step in a fast way. But we all know this is not what happened. So that intrigued me at the very onset of my career.
Okay, and so that intrigued you. You started exploring this space. How did you get from being intrigued by the whole lifetime income component to becoming an expert and writing a book about it?
Well, I started fairly early in my career. I started an intellectual property firm that was that the aim of the 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 firm was to develop a longevity hedge solution for individuals. So starting with this pension,
So just
uh,
for our audience, let's define
yep,
longevity hedge quickly.
sure. It's basically lifetime income, developing lifetime income, and lifetime income is uh, to me, lifetime income is any source of income that is available for life. So you can think of Social Security as lifetime income. You can think of a defined benefit pension plan as lifetime income. You can think of about an income annuity as lifetime income, and you can think of a tontine as lifetime income. So there's a lot of various designs. There's a lot of different uh, sources. I mean, one's a government, one's an employer, one's an insurance company. So, but the common denominator in lifetime income is any instrument that pays a dollar amount for a person for the rest of a person's life, basically.
So you're hedging against the risk that you live a really long time and thus need a lot more money to support yourself because you have more years of expenses to cover.
Exactly. That's precisely it.
Okay,
And it is so simple, right? Because uh a person who is 65 years old goes on to their retirement party and has $1 million in the banks, you know, doesn't know how long or how much they'll spend. Like if they get out of that retirement party, get hit by a bus, and they'll leave $1 million behind them to their kids or a charity or whatever. If they make it to their life expectancy and a little bit more, they're most likely going to be fine. If they make it beyond their life expectancy, then they may run out of into issues. And the simple fact that people spend money while they're alive, like it's that simple, it's that obvious, but yet people are not necessarily prepared for that very simple that simple reality that people spend money while they are alive.
yep. So then you have this trade-off then, right? Because you could have somebody say, "Hey, look, I'm just going to make absolutely sure that I save enough money that I can live off the interest no matter how long I live." And you can do that, but then the trade-off of that is you probably have to work a lot longer. You probably have to spend a lot less, right? You have to create that situation. And then if you do happen to, you know, go pass away earlier, you did all of that for.
I couldn't agree more. And the way you present it is really, really, really good and accurate. And it's a good way to put it. If you do have enough capital or enough money or enough funds, however you want to call it, and just live off the investment, the investment income that is generated by those funds or securities, that's a great way to do it. But to your point, interest rates are what they are, dividend yields are what they are. So if you're going to do this on $1 million portfolio, you may spend, 35,000 dollars per year. That's not a lot. And you're probably used to a higher spending habits if you have accumulated that much money at your retirement. So what does that mean? That means that you're and on the earlier years of your retirement, you're probably going to sell some of those assets to provide for your basic needs, which is okay if markets go up and investment returns are there to support that. But that's a big if, because if they're not at the very onset of your career, sorry, not of your career, of your retirement, then you're selling assets at a non-preferred price to provide for yourself and buy milk and pay for your utility bills. And problem. As an investor, you never want to be in a position of need. Like, you want to be in a position of strength, and that's a problem, and that's something that retirees are facing.
Okay. Okay, great. So sorry, we took a little bit of a detour there to define longevity hedge and the whole concept behind
Yes,
for our audience. But so let's go back to, so you were starting a company that was providing a longevity hedge solution. Is that correct?
yes,
Okay,
correct.
awesome. Where does the story go from there?
Well, I never raised the capital to actually put the company together, but I ended up I ended up working at so I call it my developing another expertise, which is financial analysis, both as a sell side equity analyst and a credit analyst. And it's so that brought me to another a completely other way of looking at things. And and I've developed, with the business, I've developed a lot of material. I've developed a lot of intellectual property, and through that time, like, I decided to put that information into a book, and that's how the book came along.
Okay, awesome, awesome. So could you sum up for the audience what is the main idea or the main thesis of the book in, 2 to 3 sentences?
The importance of lifetime income, and that exact situation that we discussed earlier, living off your investment income, that can be a problem. And by adding lifetime income to your investment portfolio, and that's not transforming everything to lifetime income on one particular day and hope that everything's perfect. That's not the idea. But adding a little bit of lifetime income will help you calibrate that right dilemma of spending, and that's helping individuals looking at things from not only from an asset perspective, but also from an income perspective. So that's where lifetime income can be very powerful, and that's what basically the book discusses.
Okay. So I think so what you're saying is that you're not advocating that people just dump everything into some lifetime income source and just go from there. Because I've certainly, talked to people where they have that mentality. Hey, I want to have this plus my social security, that covers my expenses, and that's that. Right. And then, my thought as I used to be an investment advisor representative is like, well, you're still missing out on some gains there. Like, I get the stability thing. The other one I've heard people say a lot is, well, I'm going to buy dividend stocks. Well, you know, I guess that is a form of lifetime income, but the thing about dividend stocks is they may stop paying their dividend at some point, You don't really know.
Absolutely. I could have I could have said it better, and you're right. It's that would be implying that dividend stocks are better than other stocks, and that's not necessarily the case. Capital markets are a little more complex than that. And a non-dividend paying stock may very well be a dividend paying stocks in the future. And vice versa. To your point, some of the dividend paying stocks may stop paying dividends. So it's I hear your point. Like, it's not just about saying, like, picking the stock that has the highest dividend and, oh, boom, you're gone, you're good. It's much more complex than that. And so yes, and I do believe that lifetime income is that tool, that vehicle that is out there that can help retirees and pre-retirees really calibrate that desired income.
So if you think about the proportion of your portfolio that you're going to allocate to a lifetime income stream versus remaining invested, how should people think about that? How should they think about how to balance and weight it?
Well, I'm not going to venture in the specific number.
Right,
That's
of
just
course, of course. I mean,
and
it's certainly this is not
yeah.
financial advice to anybody
No, no,
listening.
no. Yep.
Academically, how do we think about it from a
Yeah.
hypothesis?
Yeah, no, I see it as, what proportion of sports should every elementary school kid have in their schedule? And I'm all for sports. I do believe sports are great for many reasons. And that answer will depend on each individual. So I don't think there's a magical number here. But I would say this is that if retirees and pre-retirees have an idea of uh, looking at both their assets and their income. Like assets are easy, right? You could look at your account value, your balance, your CDs, mutual fund, your bank account. That's an easy number to get. What is more complicated is the income that this particular portfolio will generate. And if you're allowed to do that exercise, and if and you use that the investment income that the portfolio generates as a gauge or as an estimate for the income that you will spend versus that account value or that account the total assets that you have. If you look at those two and estimate your future expenses and estimate your future bequests, because ultimately if you implement that strategy and if you die 10, 20, 30 years down the road, you will leave that portion of asset as your bequest. Of course, that this will change, and you will use that portion of income of income to the amount of money you'll spend every year. If you feel good about that, then maybe you don't need any lifetime income. But if you do believe that you may leave a little too much and that you can spend a little more, then you can convert part of that into lifetime income. And what that will do is that will reduce your expected future bequest and it will boost your income. And that way you can calibrate in a much better way what are some of the goals. And of course, this will change every year and this will need to be calibrated every year, but it gets you a sense, it gets you an idea that is much better than, let's say, oh, I'll spend $60,000 per year and we'll see where that leads us. Or I'll use the, 4%, 2%. I forgot where it is now right now, but the X% kind of withdrawal type approach. I think that helps that helps people be more comfortable with not only what they will spend, but also what they will leave behind when they're gone.
Okay. So you talked about calibrating every year. Once you convert a pile of assets into a lifetime income stream, it isn't easy to undo that, to my understanding.
Correct. Correct. Pure lifetime income, yes. And yes, you're right in the way that you wouldn't necessarily take any lifetime income and unconvert it. You're right. That would defeat the purpose, because that would be like taking life insurance when you get sick. Like it's the exact it's the exact opposite. Like you would cash in your lifetime income, before people are, get uh have lower life expectancy, blah blah blah. So I'm not implying that it should be calibrated in this particular sense, but there are ways that you can calibrate in terms of how you feel comfortable. You can spend less. I mean, if you have investment income and you do believe that you have too much income, you can spend less, and whatever you quote quote save can remain in your portfolio.
Okay, so
You
what
can
you're saying
change.
is that you have a baseline of lifetime income, and that provides a buffer in case of extreme situations, and then you calibrate how much of your investment income you reinvest, and that's where you dial that knob.
That's one way to look at it. Yes, it's these are all, big frames and big big picture tools that you can use to get a gauge of what makes sense to spend or not to spend, basically.
Okay. And then in terms of when somebody's thinking about, do I want to convert from assets to lifetime income, what kind of factors are worth considering? And because everybody's going to be in different situations, right? At a
Yeah.
high level, what are the kind of factors they should be thinking about?
Well, health is a big one.
Okay.
If you're not in a good health condition, most likely lifetime income is not going to work in your favor. Unless, I mean, we've seen some like underwritten SPIAs. And so these have existed and have been in circulation. So I'm not saying that, bad health, do not look at that at all. So that's not what I'm saying. But typical lifetime income works really well for people who are going to live a longer period of time. So
So,
if you
for
know right
example,
off,
I know some biohackers here in Austin. They fully expect to live to age 120, right? Their bleeding edge, like, they look at their molecular clocks and what their biological age is and all these other things. They fully expect to live to 120. So it sounds like lifetime income is great for them, assuming they're right.
yes, assuming they're right, but at the end of the day, there's always, it's a random variable. Like you could always get hit by a bus. You always hear of the story of the person who has it was a chain smoker who lived long, and the person who was perfectly healthy and died young. It's a random variable, just like car insurance. I mean, it is possible that the 20-year-old male with a red racing car may not have an accident. Like, it's a possibility. It's not impossible, but you know, uh, it remains a random variable, and that ends up being uh, being factored within the price. But yes, you're right. Like, if you are one of those people where you expect to live longer, then yes, you're definitely a good candidate for that.
Okay. What other factors? So health is a big one. That makes sense.
Also, aversion, risk tolerance in terms of
Yep.
investments. So things have to be looked at on a comprehensive basis. And depending on the rest of your portfolio, because it's not just like, oh, okay, I'm buying this and I check that box. It's what is the impact for the rest of your portfolio? So the lifetime income right now, like the most lifetime income is based or akin to fixed income type returns. Who knows? Maybe in the future you'll be able to have some lifetime income that is akin to other investment classes or other asset classes. But nevertheless, things have to be looked at on a comprehensive basis. So risk tolerance, risk appetite are all part of the consideration, the factors.
So
And as
I'd like to jump in there. That's because that's really
Yep.
interesting. And something I want to share with the audience because I've done some work on this myself, actually, in another one of my businesses, mapping psychometrics to neurochemistry and how that affects risk tolerance. So there's a psychometric assessment called the DISC assessment. It's kind of well known. It's used in hiring. It's used in coaching. Like if you were Tony Robbins' personal client, he would have you take DISC and some other stuff. And so if you look at DISC is DISC, right? If you look at like high Ds, they are heavy in dopamine, adrenaline, like that whole catecholamine axis. The catecholamines are like kind of like that fight or flight thing, and then dopamine, which is kind of that reward risk seeking kind of thing. So entrepreneurs are very often going to be high Ds. So they're going to have a high risk tolerance. So they may want less lifetime income because they're more comfortable with bigger swings in their wealth. With that, sometimes, but not only does it not bother them, some of them actually enjoy the rush, which can lead to its own financial challenges of boom and bust roller coaster
There
stuff.
are casinos for that, right?
Well, but the thing is, they always like to get advantage, right? Like a smart entrepreneur is like, hey, I like the risk, but I want to make sure that the edge is in my
Mhm,
favor.
mhm.
Um, and then on the other side, if you look at the SCs, they're going to be more on oxytocin, more on endorphins, And they tend to be much more risk averse, right? So, for them, especially more on the C than the S, a swing in their portfolio will keep them up at night, right? If they see, a 10% swing in their portfolio, they might, that might really disrupt their quality of life for an extended period of time. And so having that lifetime income would help really deal with that kind of anxiety. Whereas somebody who's a high D is like, oh, well, the swing happens, it happens, whatever. And so, I mean, this is something if people want to go assess their risk tolerance, I would highly recommend you go take the DISC, right? It's a great way to have an objective third-party measurement because it is something that plays into your financial decisions for sure. And personally, I'd say, if you have a financial advisor, take that to your financial advisor and let him see it because it is a meaningful variable.
Absolutely. And this makes perfect sense. And one way to address this, to your point, you were saying like, oh, you have a 10% swing in your asset portfolio. Well, what is that impact on income? Like, does the income change a lot? And is it just my capacity as an investor to sell those assets today that has dropped by 10%, or that's really my purchasing power, or that my ability to spend that has significantly decreased? And what does that mean for the future as well? So, so yes, and to your other point as well, even if you're a big risk taker, yes, you can take those, you can stomach those, but it's important to understand that you have to look at various scenarios and what are your options at those scenarios. And yes, if you're in your 50s and you've gone through many businesses and put a lot of money away, maybe yes, you are more comfortable with those large swings. But what if you're in your 80s and you may run out of funds? Like, what are your options? Right?
So
You're not going to go back
it's
to
two more
work.
variables you just put up there. One is age,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And the second is your actual amount of wealth holdings, right? So,
Yes.
for
Yep.
example, if somebody has, say they worked for what is now a very large company when it was new and they got a bunch of options and it's taken off, right? And they have a bunch of money there. They're perhaps much less concerned about lifetime income because it's not really going to affect their quality of life. They have more than they know what to do with. The average person is not necessarily in that position, right? That's a very fortunate position to be in. And likewise, if you're, 40 or, 35, you've got time, like if the market goes down, you got time for things to, you got time to repair things. Whereas if you're 80, you're not going to be going back to work to put more money in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's where I believe that any form of lifetime income is that special vehicle that gets you this kick if you get at older ages.
Yep.
And that's when you need it the most because that's when, to your point, you have the least options.
Yeah.
And that comes at the cost of saying, well, if I die early, then that money doesn't go to my hair. It goes to me basically. And that comes back to our earlier point that it's not an all or nothing proposition. Like it's a small, it happens through small calibrations over time. Not just, oh, it has to be this or that. It's not black or white. So yes, that's a really good point.
You brought up another factor, and that is your heirs. So somebody who has children and they have an intention to leave an inheritance versus someone who has no children, no bequests, no nothing, they're going to approach lifetime income differently.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And and to a certain extent, if your if your goal is to spend every single dollar of your portfolio without leaving anything behind, the theory will say that you should put everything into lifetime income. Now, a theory is not that doesn't always apply because you may not be exposed to other asset classes or things like that. But there's a strong argument to put more into lifetime income.
Well, at
But
least to
I
cover all of your expenses so that you can
Yes,
draw down as much as you want to whenever you want to.
exactly. exactly. But I would say that the lifetime income option is very relevant for people with kids and people with high bequest motives,
Yep. Just not as
because
much.
lifetime. Well, yeah. Well, the way I see it, like longevity risk, the risk of living too long is basically negative bequest. So yes, if you
Hmm.
have no lifetime income whatsoever and you die early, and you will leave a significant bequest to your kids, and that's not a problem. It's something you're very happy with. If you live a longer life and you may leave no bequest at all, which some view it as a problem. Some people view it as not necessarily a goal they have achieved, but it's not the end of the world. But for sure, a big problem is when you have no funds and you're still alive. That is an absolute that's an absolute problem. And at that point in time, you have no option to go back to work. You may rely on your kids, and your kids may have problems on their own. Your kids may be retiring themselves. Who knows? It's a very it's a very unfortunate situation, and that's something that people should avoid at all costs.
Yep. Yep. Okay, so five interesting factors that we talked about there. We talked about health, we talked about age, we talked about just psychological risk tolerance. Like,
Mhm.
if a decline in your portfolio would really upset you, to having that lifetime income and knowing, hey, everything's going to be okay no matter what, is really going to provide some soothing there. We talked about children, and then we talked about total
Ability to
amount
go
of
back to
wealth.
work,
It was total
total
amount
amount
of
of
wealth.
wealth. That's what.
So somebody who has a lot more wealth can afford to, take more risks with what they have. Any
Absolutely.
any other factors? I feel like those are five really good factors to think about.
Yes. Well, and yeah, no, those are really important factors. But I think the idea is to do the exercise and be comfortable at every single one of those scenarios. If I die early, if I die young, if market returns are better than expected, market returns are lower than expected. If you create those scenarios and you adapt them to your own personal situation, uh, that will going through that exercise will help you identify your own factors and your own considerations. Because at the end of the day, that's it's not about it's not about cocktail discussions or be like sounding very interesting. It's about feeling comfortable about yourself, feeling comfortable uh, about your portfolio, basically providing for yourself in year of your work or your salary or your bonuses or your commissions with whatever you used to do as in your working career. So it is important to have some sort of element of recreating that paycheck. And to your point, not everyone has a paycheck. Some have commission bonuses, stock options. There's various forms there, but it is important to attack that from various scenarios.
Cool, cool. Well, thank you, Bruno. I think this has been a really interesting and enlightening discussion for our viewers. I'm not sure that many of them will have considered this from all these different angles, right? So I really, really appreciate the depth there. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up?
No, thank you as well. I think we could continue that discussion for for many hours, but to your point, we have to narrow it down and make it concise. And I think the way you brought it up is great. And I so thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for attending this webinar sponsored by Savvly, your personal pension designed to provide lifelong financial security and peace of mind. And have a wonderful day. And Bruno, thank you for your time.
Thank you.